Well, hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Gigantic Podcast. I am your host. I am Booth, and I am joined this week and every week by my fiance, giant fanatic, and first-time podcaster. What do you want to call yourself? What are we going to call you, Bridget? Because your name is Bridget. You have a real name.
It is Bridget, and I don't know, my league handle is Breivik.
Right, which I'm going to ruin in a little bit. Because we're going to get, like, married and stuff. And
I know.
We're going to be traditional, and you're going to take my name.
Yeah, and you end my family line.
Pretty much.
So
that's going to happen. That's going to happen.
Thanks for that. Thank you for that.
But what we're really here to talk about is Gigantic, this awesome new game that is coming out, TBA. It is currently in a alpha state, locked behind an NDA. Lots of information not getting out to us, which is super not fun. But this is a podcast that will hopefully grow with the game, grow with the community. We're really excited. We got first exposed to the game at PAX East 2015. To give you a little bit of a time buffer, this first episode was recorded on March 19th, so you kind of have some information that's come out since PAX, and really exciting stuff. So to open up, let's talk about us a little bit before we talk about the game. Bridget, who are you?
I am human.
You are a human. Confirmed.
I am a human. Yes. I am a dog lover. And I was opened up to the video game world by yourself.
Exposed to it.
Booth. I was.
But it's not like you're just... It was gaming, and before that was nothing. You're
No.
a bit of a nerd in your own right.
I am. I mean, I was raised like any nerd on Star Wars and Indiana Jones. You know, I was raised right. Basically.
A general lover of things, if you will.
General lover of things, movie fanatic, book reader. But yeah, I mean, my background is in literature and history, so I'm always reading. But what drew me to video games was actually the lore.
Ooh. Love
some lore. So I'm really interested to see what Gigantic's going to come out with, because there's not that much out there at all. But I'm really excited because there's so much potential for it.
Right, and with the art style that they've brought to the table, man, they can really make this thing.
It's gorgeous.
This is your first podcast. This is literally the first time you've ever been behind the mic.
It's true.
Wow.
It's very true. I know. I mean, you and I listen to, podcasts together, but this is the first time my voice is out there in the cosmos,
yes,
if you will.
We're big fans of the Maximum Fun Network. You've got Bim Bam, my brother and me. You got Adventure Zones, Sawbones, Bunker Buddies. So many good shows. And of course, a little background on me. I am no stranger to podcasting. I am the current voice behind the T-Force LCS Rundown, as well as the podcasting enthusiast podcast of Cast the Pod, which is at this point still in development, unreleased. Spoiler alert, a part of the Meringue family of podcasts. And I've done a lot of past work, mostly in League of Legends. I actually produced a podcast for MIT in my history, but I've been doing podcasting for about 2 to 3 years now. Absolutely love the medium. And here we are. We were both struck with the PAX bug, as it were. Really impressed by Gigantic. Decided, hey, we've never worked on a project like this before together. Let's make a show out of it. Let's do a podcast.
Yeah. Let's get crazy.
Let's just do it. I remember I was talking to, and we'll get right into the show, I promise, and not talk too much about it. But this is our first time, so let us build some character here, you judgmental listeners out there.
Be nice.
I was talking to the current owner of the T-Force Network, which is what the LCS Rundown's on, and I was like, yeah, I really want to do this show on Gigantic. It was this awesome game at PAX, and he's like, nope, not interested. Don't give me a game that doesn't have a huge following yet or isn't even out. We need to focus on the tangibles, Tom. Give me the tangibles.
So we were like, fine.
Yeah, we're going to make our own podcast with our own website and money and stuff. So
yeah,
here we are. And let's talk a little bit about what we want this show to be. I love communities that form around games. I think if you look at any successful game, you're going to see a really committed audience who creates great content for that game, be it fan art or podcasts or blogs. And it's really that sense of community outside of the game that I think keeps people coming back. And I was really impressed when I saw the people around the Gigantic booth, and I checked it out on Reddit later, and I saw the Reddit community, and there's already a ton of different websites that are kind of covering the game, even though there's so little information out there. It's really it's been a ton of fun, and I saw it, and I said, you know what, let's get involved. Really excited to do this show. It's going to be a bit of a casual show, if you will. We're not going to be crunching any numbers here. I don't think either of us are equipped to do that.
I am an accountant.
That's true. You could be a number cruncher in that sense, but
no.
Yeah, I think what we're going to talk about on the show is we're going to highlight fun things about the game. We're going to talk about the game as if you are a person who's brand new to it. We'll talk about some base level strategy on that end, what we've seen work in the game, but also what we love about the game and the different communities that form around it. So it's going to be a bit of a variety hour, if you will, coming clocked in at maybe just a half hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we want out of this show. And a big part of this, a huge part, is about you on the other side of those headphones. We want to hear from you. So maybe you are a fan of the game and you want to just reach out to us and give us some ideas for show content, some things to chew on, some tasty content bits that you want us to discuss. That's what we're all about. We want to hear from you. We want some interaction.
Mm-hmm. Want to bring the community alive.
We do. We're going to be a part of it. So it's a big part. It's a big part of keeping this game going. It's that, the team that supports Gigantic and their creators, they can only go so far to put out a game. It's really up to the community to make that game last and be something special.
Well, and I feel like that's what we really saw at PAX.
Right. Was
that huge crowd, everyone loving it, and then you would run into someone at a different game and they would be like, oh my god, did you play Gigantic? And it was just all the talk all over the place.
Right. And we saw it, this isn't our first PAX by any stretch of the imagination. And
no.
I remember that's kind of what League of Legends was.
Mm-hmm.
You could see there was just the Riot booth over in the corner was absolutely massive. Everyone was there. Everybody had the swag from it. And it was almost unescapable. But this year, really, so many people, for those of you who couldn't attend PAX East, they were giving out T-shirts and headbands for playing the game. The lines were always pretty long. And they had such a great exposure. It was right in the middle of the floor. It was such an awesome crowd, and so many people got hyped up just to see that.
Well, and I feel like since Riot wasn't there this year, I feel like that's what people were looking for. They missed that, and they found it at the Gigantic booth.
And I think it's funny, too, because pretty much no matter where we were, we always kind of ran into people who played League. And while we were waiting in queue, which we waited about 45 minutes or so to play this game, everyone else was talking about League.
Yeah, all around us.
When you're far away, so to kind of set the stage for those of you who couldn't be at PAX, when you were in queue to play Gigantic, you were surrounded by a couple of different stations where the game was being played. And it's a 5 versus 5 game, so they had 5 stations on each side of a wall. Above them was a very large monitor that showed them playing, and then kind of towards the center of the booth where you would finally get your chance to play, the end of the line there, they had sort of a presentation running that explained the mechanics of the games and some of the heroes that you were going to get the chance to play. So sitting kind of far back in the line, people were talking about just general stuff about the expo. There's a lot of League talk. There's actually some pretty cool TPA skinned cosplay from League of Legends going on. We had an Ezreal in line with us, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
But as you got closer, people were like, okay, looks like there's some ranged, there's some support. Like, you got tactical in there.
Like, everyone's like, okay, shut up about everything else. I'm focusing.
We're on Gigantic now. Shut up.
It's true, though, because, like, in the line, it was like, it wrapped around the whole booth, and then as you got to, like, the last, because they were taking 20 people at a time because it was 5 versus 5, and they had 2 stations set up on our side of the booth. And what happened was, as soon as you got into, like, when you started counting heads, and you're like, we're in the next 2, all of a sudden it was hushed.
Yep.
Like, you were just watching, trying to figure out, is there something I can pay attention to that no one else is that will really make my play just a little bit better.
So I was kind of nervous when we were in line because the way they were doing it was you're either going to go in as a group of 5 or some combination of 5, so like 3 and 2, a bunch of individuals or what have you, or you were going to get 4 and you were going to get one of the community coaches who were kind of designed to be there on the comms with you, playing a champion or a hero rather, and kind of just getting ready to help your team win, giving you the info you need. And
yeah, they were great.
Behind us, though, in line, there was a group of 5 people who were just a little obnoxious.
Yes.
They were complaining about, like, work, and the things they were saying that they were complaining about just was absolutely obnoxious. I'm not going to judge. They didn't sound like they were in the right in this particular scenario.
Just from what we heard.
Yeah, won't go into detail on them, but what we ended up getting, because we were kind of just the little twosome in line, we ended up getting paired with 2 people. One person, actually, that individual. So we had us 2. We had another group of 2.
And then a straggler.
A straggler.
A single.
Fun fact, that straggler was a fan of the show, but was too embarrassed to say hello.
Stop it.
He was, because I noticed he mentioned, like, oh, you play League, and he looked at my shirt, because I was wearing my LCS Rundown shirt at the time.
As you always are.
And, he sent me a message on Twitter earlier, and he was like, hey, I played Gigantic with you, it was great, yeah, just thanks. It was cool meeting you. And I messaged him back. I was like, hey, man, why don't you say hi? Like,
we could have hung out.
Yeah, we could have totally been bros. But so we kind of get this ragtag group, and we're sort of talking to ourselves, and they're all talking with each other, and they turn to us, and they both just go, okay, you guys, can you be ranged? And we're like, yeah, sure. All right.
Yeah, the
great.
guys in our team.
We know nothing about this game, but of course we'll be ranged. Why not?
Yeah. And then they say, like, okay, we need a sniper. Tom just shoots up his hand saying,
yes,
I can do that.
Love it.
And then they look at me and they're like, just play whatever you want.
Yep.
I was like, thank you. Which I liked.
I have to admit, I underestimated your abilities because you play League, but you don't play against people. You play against bots. You haven't graduated yet.
Well, it's true, and because I had a lull.
Yes.
My laptop broke for 3 months.
That was dark times.
It was very dark times, and I couldn't play.
Yep.
So, and I was just getting to the point when it broke that I was getting comfortable enough to play with live people. and then I go back in, and I'm trying to work myself back up. But I did play against people by accident, I think, in my first week.
Yep, I remember
and that.
That was incredibly entertaining for me, terribly destructive to your in-game confidence.
Yes, very much so.
But so we get in the game, and I mean, I don't know. Neither of us know anything. I ended up playing Voden, who is a foxy little archer. He's got some really cool abilities. He can shoot arrows. He can put down a poison. He has a really nice 2 bits of utility, which one allows you to create a decoy of yourself. Another allows you to make a little spring on the ground. It's spring funny in 2 senses of the word. One in that it heals you, and another in that it makes you jump super high. And then his ultimate ability, which we'll talk probably in a future show. This is probably not a great episode if you have never heard of Gigantic. I assume that if you're listening to this podcast, that you have probably experienced Gigantic in some sort of way, be it at PAX. Maybe you got into the alpha and you can't tell anybody because it's currently under an NDA, and that would be bad. And yeah, there could be a little bit of information you might have or might not have. We will cover in maybe a future episode, probably the next one or the one after that. We'll go into a pretty big depth on what the game is played like from what we can remember at PAX. But it'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting episode. Stay tuned.
Yes.
Stay tuned for that. But you got to play HK206.
I did. And he was a robot. And what I really liked is, so he had a bullet barrage, and then which it was just like a constant stream of fire, which I loved because it was easy for me to quickly do a lot of damage without really having known the game ever really. And then he also had the railgun, which was like an energy blast, and then Swarm, which would release a bunch of missiles and everything. And that's what I really like. Those are the champions I would go towards in League.
You're an ADC
I'm an AD
marksman.
Yeah, I'm a AD. What am I? AD carry.
Yep.
Yeah. In League, and it's just what I like to do. So I really liked him. I also really loved the coaches that were there, because not knowing the game and also not being that experienced, in method and in playing and everything, they were in my ear kind of the whole time saying, okay, so, don't forget to upgrade your abilities. Mm-hmm. Don't forget to, you can go faster if you hold down Alt, which I didn't know halfway through the game.
Yeah, there were so many little intricacies into the game that, again, I don't want to drone on too much about that yet. Mm-hmm. We will have an episode like that, I promise.
Yep.
But so we kind of both picked champions that sort of fit our wheelhouse, and I actually kind of liked HK. I keep calling them H2K. League on the mind. HK for you as well, because he was also kind of a little bit tanky. He has that fortify ability that gives him a little bit of extra armor, but kind of keeps you in one place. It just made it a little bit easier for you to kind of last. And one thing I will say about the game, it's very fast paced, and it's kind of hard to aim. Because it's so fast-paced, it's more likened to a first-person shooter when you're playing a ranged person, which makes it fun, kind of unique, and just a little bit more difficult than I'd say some of the other games I've played.
True, and just going into... So the map we were in was kind of like a rock ravine.
Yeah.
Which was... beautifully designed.
Yep.
But also it kind of, if you took a left instead of a right, it had all these different ways you could reach the enemy, and so you could all of a sudden be in a bottleneck, or you could find yourself up high, where in a perfect sniping position. And I felt like where I really shined was because I was tanky, I couldn't really, and like you said, it was kind of hard to aim. that where I really liked it was when we did get to the enemy and they were just all there and I could just lay down fire.
Yep.
Because then I would like catch myself at a bottleneck. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the team aspect of it is really there.
Yeah.
They had voice server. I don't know how it's going to be in the actual game when it gets released, but they had a voice service there, so we could all kind of talk to each other, which was nice. Of course, the coaches would always pop in.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our ragtag group.
Yeah.
We have our thrown together group, and everybody kind of picks their champions. We're all waiting. We get paired up with the group of 5 not so nice people.
Obnoxious peoples.
And I'm kind of thinking, like, all right, so I don't know these guys. I don't know what their skill level is. I've never played the game. I don't know what my skill level is.
Yeah.
And Bridget's pretty new to games. I wasn't expecting a win. And that was very silly of me because we destroyed.
We dominated them.
This podcast probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for those 5 people and losing so bad. I don't normally like it. I think it's just, it's a new game and anything can happen. It's not like we're like particularly awesome at the game.
No. Oh God, no.
But
and it's not like we're usually not braggers.
Right.
Or anything. It was just the satisfaction.
Right.
I think.
You win, and it's so cool to win, too, because, again, kind of getting into the game a little bit, the way you win is you got to kill the other team's guardians. Guardians are these massive, larger-than-life creatures.
Yeah.
At either end of this canyon, your kills and your objectives power up yours. Powered up, he attacks. Pretty much the game. When he attacks, you can attack the other thing. It's the same kind of classic MOBA genre, but just rewritten in a really unique way that makes what you're doing feel just a little bit more epic.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was fast-paced. It was fun. We had a great time playing it. I wish we could have gotten another round at it.
Yeah, because it takes a little bit to get into the groove,
right.
get the feel for it.
Yeah, and apparently there were all these like gigantic parties, and there was a tournament where a team they won like Alienware computers, and they got tickets to PAX Prime. All this was going on sort of around us at PAX, and we were blissfully unaware. But it shows to me, going to PAX as a company, super expensive. To pay for all this stuff, super expensive. It shows that the guys and gals over at Motiga, which is the company that makes it, are pretty serious about this game, which is really exciting. I don't actually know of any other games that they've created in the past. I'm on their website now, and it looks like pretty much this has been it.
Yeah.
It's been in the works for quite some time. But really, like, PAX is the first time I heard of it, and it made a huge splash there. They did really, really great. They're getting all sorts of accolades from different companies that are out there that review stuff and talk about video games. It's great.
Yeah, and just going back to like wishing we had, had the time to take another round at it, was the creatures part of the game.
Yeah,
there were different spots on the map that were strategic points, and you could summon a creature and they would strengthen, like for every creature you summoned, it would strengthen your guardian and also fight with you.
Yeah.
And then as you killed the other team's creatures, it was like beneficial. But I didn't even get to touch that part of the game.
Yeah.
I really wasn't part of that. That's not what I was trying to figure out. I was too busy trying to figure out how to level up my stuff. Because when you hover over level ups, it's like a tree of options. And I was just like too busy reading those, apparently.
Yeah, well, it's kind of crazy because we haven't really mentioned that part. So there's not, so the goal of each match rather, is to kill the Guardian, and you don't just get it by kills. So it's not just, a complete brawl session where you kind of knock each other about. You can place, at least in the PAX version, one of 3 of these little towers, and they have different buffs that they give you. And they're I say towers, they're creatures. They're kind of like towers, though. They give there was like a healing one. There was one that made your whole team give more damage. Yeah. And I think there was one that gave you health. I'm not too sure which was which.
Yeah.
But just really, really cool, kind of a fun, different edge to it. That makes the map a little bit more dynamic.
And it makes it more strategic.
Right.
Too.
Right. You can't just spend all of your time trying to win team fights sort of in this centralized area, because if, like what I was doing is I was running interruptions. I would go, they would be fighting, and since my champion was so mobile and I kind of had that really nice jump ability, I would break off from the group and go and cap one of their little tower areas and put up my own buff. And now that causes one of them to kind of move back, and we were kind of already winning the fights anyway. So it allowed us to be much more dominant in map control and led to a pretty swift victory. If anything, I guess I would have maybe liked to have lost more so we could have played longer, but wow, what a great game. I mean, there's a lot of really exciting stuff out there already. I do want to take the time now to kind of highlight, for those of you who may not have dove in too deep into the gigantic community base, there are a lot of really good people kind of working on community stuff for the game already. Your place to be, other than giganticpodcast.com, which is where I'm sure you discovered our show, the subreddit r/gigantic is just packed with stuff.
It's blowing up.
Yeah, there's a ton of people there already, over 2,000 subscribers. There's artwork going up. There's discussions going up. Motiga is pretty responsive there, and it's actually really clear on the subreddit which posts have had Motiga respond to, so you can kind of go in and see what they're doing as well. But there are lots of other groups, a lot of which I kind of had put a post out early on in the podcast's life about kind of gaining some help from the community and see if there's anybody interested. And pretty much every group that was out there and that is out there has reached out to me in some capacity, which was really cool because, here we are, just kind of 2 people looking to do our own thing. But everybody else is like, oh, no, join up with us. We're kind of doing the same thing as well. So I just want to give shout-outs to ggunleashed.com, which they are a fan site. They've already got a lot of Twitch content up there, which is great. Also, there is Clashpoint, which if you are sort of that min-maxer kind of person, they have already guides for heroes that has all of their skills kind of pre-built in and some of the passive upgrades. We'll talk again in a future episode a bit about how champions work and the different abilities they have and what they can do, but there is lots of really cool stuff on that site to kind of give you an idea of where the game is. Kind of overarching statement on a lot of this, keep in mind that the NDA is in effect. That's the non-disclosure agreement. Pretty much says that if there's information out there about the game that's from the alpha state that it's currently in, it's in a private alpha, you can't talk about it.
Nope.
So even saying that, hey, I'm in the alpha is against the rules. So there's certainly, we're going to try our best not to have any content like that. If we see content that comes across the forums or any place like that, we're going to keep that out of the show. If there are any questions asked, we're going to keep it out of the show just because we're respecting the NDA pretty much.
Gotta respect them.
Yeah.
Also, can I say, you're going to be in a constant struggle not to call the heroes champions.
It's just going to happen. I'm just going to accept it.
It's just going to be like an inner fight within you.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll create like a little like voiceover spoof where it's me just going, heroes! And then every time I say champions, I'll just bleep in the heroes over that.
That won't be obvious.
No, not at all. It'll be totally natural.
No one will pick up on that, ever.
No. Well, we've talked about quite a bit in this episode. We've sort of introduced ourselves and what we're trying to do. I think that's a good first episode.
I would agree.
So this has been the Gigantic Podcast, your source for talk about Gigantic. That will develop over time, I'm sure. We'll find a much catchier catchphrase, if you will. You can find us on giganticpodcast.com. There's lots of... I've got a couple blog posts up there already. Bridget will be writing for the show as well. You can submit your questions or comments there. Absolutely send in feedback. We love it. Good or bad. If you think this sucks, you don't like this, you don't like me, you don't like her, I might fight you. No, but seriously, we love it and we accept it and we want to hear it. And if there's something that you think would make the show better, if there's something that you think should be left out of the show, or maybe you just want to get involved and put yourself out there, we're ready to hear all of it.
Absolutely.
That's the dinner bell in the background. Yep. If you didn't hear that,
meatloaf is in the oven.
Meatloaf is in the oven. Meatloaf is about to go in my belly. From everybody here at the Gigantic Podcast, thanks and see you next week.
Bye.